YouTube, how's it going? Frogs Angels is back with some more 2018 NFL content, and I have top 10 defenses for you guys, in my opinion. Did the offenses video, got top 10 offenses out of the way. Go check that out if you haven't already. Great video. Now we got top 10 defenses. We're going to continue on with this top 10, all kinds of stuff. We'll eventually get the positions, players in each position group, and then we'll get top players in general eventually. So defenses, let's start with number 10. It's going to be the Chicago Bears. I think they came in at number 10 last year. Statistically, I think they stay around that range. Pretty balanced defense, defensive lineman. I gave him a B. Akeem Hicks is obviously the standout guy. Eddie Goldman is the nose tackle. Pretty solid, pretty young guy. Can he take another step up? And then Jonathan Bullard expected to be the other D end, but could be anybody there. So really, it's Akeem Hicks who's the standout guy. They could use more talent around him. He's a very good defensive lineman, good at run stopping and getting to the quarterback. Linebackers, I gave him an A-. This could be a very good linebacker group, adding Roquan Smith to the mix at the inside with Danny Trevathan, who's been a pretty solid inside linebacker if healthy. And then Leonard Floyd is the outside guy. Very good season last year until he got hurt, so let's hope he's okay. So between those three guys, looking very good. Who's going to be the other guy outside? You got Aaron Lynch, Sam Acho, kind of competing for that job. So we will see there. But I kept it an A-. Could be a pretty good group if healthy. DBs gave it a B. It's a pretty balanced DB group. Corners are looking like Prince Amukamara, who actually had a pretty good, solid season last year. Kyle Fuller, best season of his career last year. Those are guys kind of had up and down careers, though. So let's hope they stay at the same level or even better as they did last year. And the safeties played very well last year. Adrian Amos and Eddie Jackson kind of guys. Similar to the corners. Two guys that, well, Eddie Jackson was a mid-round rookie, but then two guys that had a surprisingly good year and their best year of their career. That's pretty obvious, Eddie Jackson the first year, but it's kind of a little bit of a question mark if they'll continue to play at that level or get better, similar to the corners. So I gave him a B there. No standout guy, but pretty balanced. And then coaching, I gave him an A. Vic Fangio, excellent defensive coordinator, and they have guys in the past with, like, on paper, their defense didn't look good at all. They had these, like, kind of at the time random guys in there, no-name guys, and they played very well. So I think he's a very good developer as a defensive coordinator, and obviously he knows his defense. Top 10 defense last year, and on paper you wouldn't think they'd be anywhere near that. So very impressive. That's kind of borderline A plus there for Vic Fangio. So they almost didn't get him back too. It's a good thing they got him back. That was a good move there. So on to number 9. I went with the Panthers. Panthers D-line. I gave him a B plus, maybe getting a little worse this year. Julius Peppers up there in age. I don't expect him at a high level. Mario Addison, the other D end, pretty solid. Dontari Poe and Quan Short, that's their strong suit right there, is their D tackles. Vernon Butler, still waiting on him to step up, but that's pretty good backup there, pretty good rotation guy. The D tackles is their strong suit, then they could use another D end for the future, but they still get a B plus, solid grade. Linebackers, A plus. Thomas Davis going to be suspended though. I'm considering him in there. Luke Kuechly, Shaq Thompson. That is a excellent linebacker unit when everyone's in there. Maybe depth really isn't there. But for the most part, linebackers, you don't see too much shuffling. Obviously, we're going to see that the first few weeks. But for the most part, A plus for them there. DB, this is where it goes downhill a little bit. C plus. Corners, you expect to be James Bradbury, Kevin Seymour. They drafted Dante Jackson. Captain Marlon is a slot guy. No big-time guy there. I'm glad they drafted some guys, but and that was much needed. But really, the DB group could get better. And then safeties, Mike Adams. And who's the other safety going to be? Denoris Cersei, Colin Jones. This secondary could get better, but they've had like a lack of secondary players in the past few years, and they've still been pretty good at a pretty good level there on defense. They do have Ross Cockrell as well. Pretty good nickelback. But so they got some guys that can play, but I would like for them to get better. But maybe these Dante Jackson, Rashawn Golden guys step up, play at a very high level early. I think Golden needs some developing. Not sure where they're going to stick him right away. Is it going to be safety? Is it going to be in the slot? They got some slot guys. They're full of the nickel, the slot guys. So Dante Jackson was another one. So not really sure the routes, but I am glad they drafted a few guys that could be solid in the future. A- for coaching. They did lose Wilkes, but Ron Rivera is mainly a defensive mind there. So I still stuck with the A range, gave him an A-. So who's next? We got the Bears at 10, the Panthers at 9. Number 8 is going to be the Titans. I expect them to step up. I thought this first half of the year that they were towards the bottom of the defense. Second half of the year, they were towards the top. So I expect them to continue on with that. Defensive line game a B+. Jarrell Casey, obviously one of the better defensive linemen in football. They had Benny Logan at nose tackle, pretty solid. Daquan Jones, pretty solid end for them. So B+, mainly what's keeping them up there is Jarrell Casey. Linebackers, B+. Derek Morgan, Brian Arakpo on the outside. Those guys started off a little slow last year. They started picking up at the end. They did draft Harold Landry for the outside as well. And then inside, I like their two inside guys, Wesley Woodyard, and they drafted Rashaan Evans. They also have Jayon Brown. I like that crew right there, those three inside guys. Will Compton added to the mix too. I like the inside guys. Outside guys, Derek Morgan, you expect to play at a high level. Brian Arakpo, maybe getting up there in age, but they did draft Harold Landry. So I gave him a B+ for the linebackers. DBs, I gave him an A-. Big step up. You got Logan Ryan. They got last year, and they got Malcolm Butler to go along with him. Adoree Jackson they drafted last year as well. So that's a pretty good trio there. In terms of safeties, Kevin Byard was obviously all-pro. Jonathan Cyprian can play safety, can play in the box. They drafted Cruikshank, who I really liked in the draft. So that's a pretty good unit. Gave him an A- there. Let's hope the younger guys can step up. So hopefully Byard can still play at that all-pro level. Coaching, I gave him a B+. Vrabel stepping in, you expect him to be a great defensive coach here with this group. So I gave him a B+. I know some people really don't like the hire, but I think it's pretty solid between the head coach and the offensive coordinator. I think it's a good duo. And you do have Dean Pease in there too, which is weird. He's defense coordinator. He's usually the guy running the defense, I would think. But him and Vrabel, I think that could be a good defensive duo there. So on to the next team. We have number 7 is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. D-line, I gave him a B+. Tack McKinley, you expect to step up. You got Brooks Reed. You got Derek Shelby. Those are the defensive ends. Defensive tackles, Grady Jarrett, who I like a lot. You got Jack Crawford, pretty solid. D'Adrian Sanat, who was a pretty good draft pick. I started to like him more and more as we got closer to the draft there. So B+ for the D-line. Linebacker, I gave him a B+. It really depends on what you consider Vic Beasley here. You can see him coming off the end as a DN. You also can see him stepping back playing some kind of linebacker. Maybe it's that Leo position that the Seahawks used to run there with back in their Super Bowl days. And I mean, maybe that's why Dan Quinn's there. We'll get to the coaching in a little bit. DBs, I gave him a B. Pretty balanced, no standout guys. We expecting, kind of waiting for Keanu Neal to step up. Ricardo Allen, pretty solid safety. You got Robert Alford, Desmond Trufant, if healthy. Pretty good depth, too. You got Brian Poole. I mean, not really depth. He plays a lot. Justin Bethel. Kazi, they drafted last year. So, I mean, you expect some guys to step up. It's a pretty balanced group, and just no big-name guys, so I kept it at a B. And then coaching, A+. I mentioned the coaching. Dan Quinn there. Excellent defensive mind. So I gave it an A+. I mean, another team, Falcons, don't really have those big-name guys, and the defense is playing at a high level. So you're kind of creating big-name guys. We've seen them against the Eagles in the playoffs. The defense played a hell of a game. They could have won that game. The offense is what didn't get it done. And teams just weren't able to stop the Eagles' offense. And the Falcons, for the most part, did. So very impressive there. I think coaching has a lot to do with it. So Falcons coming in there at number 7. Number 6 is going to be the Denver Broncos. D-line, I gave them an A. Very borderline. Derek Wolfe with now the new guy, Bradley Chubb. D-tackle. They could use another guy in there. So I gave him an A. Linebacker, also gave him an A. You got Von Miller, obviously. You got Todd Davis, Brandon Marshall on the inside, but you draft Josie Jewell. Maybe that could step in there. Pretty good draft pick there. And then the other outside linebacker is Shaquille Barrett or Shane Ray. So you have some depth here. You got big-name players like Von Miller. So it's a pretty good group. Gave him an A. DB, gave him a B+. Even though they lose Aqib Talib, I still like this group. Bradley Roby, Chris Harris. The safeties, Justin Simmons, very impressive last year. You expect him to step up even more, hopefully. Darian Stewart, another solid safety. And you have pretty good depth at safety. You got Su'a Cravens. Can't wait to see what they're going to do with him. Jamal Carter is pretty solid. So they got a pretty good group there. Maybe no top tier guy. I think Bradley Roby will start to be noticed more now. So B plus. Coaching, game of B plus as well. Vance Joseph mainly running that defense there. Pretty good, but I mainly think it's the players. They got really good talent around them, and that's why the defense will be around here for the season. So who will be next? Is this number 5? Number 5 is going to be the LA Chargers. D-line, I gave them an A. Obviously, pretty solid D-line. The run stopping is the question, though. I mean, they got pretty big-name guys there, Brandon Mebane and Corey Legit. I expect them to figure it out. Pretty good name guys there, but the run stopping wasn't really there. They did draft Justin Jones to help out there. But it's really the D-ends. You look at Joey Bosa is the D-end over there, and he's very young and playing at a high level. Can he take another step up? Possible, and that'd be very scary. It's kind of tough here. Where do you consider Melvin Ingram? Do you consider him a DN or outside linebacker? Because he is both with another similar Leo defense, maybe a little similar to the Falcons, but the Chargers run more of it with Gus Bradley coming a former Seahawks defensive-minded guy. So where do you consider Melvin Ingram? I mean, if you consider him with the D-line, I still consider an A. The interior D lineman can be good, but the run stopping keeps it away from an A+. Consider him a linebacker. Really, the linebacker group needs a little work. But then if Melvin Ingram's in there, it keeps it at a B. Denzel Perryman, pretty solid. Other than that, then they could get better. They got Uchenna Nwosu. They drafted him. Jatavius Brown, liked him. He was a sleeper a few years ago for me in the draft. So I think they'll step it up this year. DBs, I gave him an A. It's a very good DB group. Casey Hayward, obviously one of the better corners in football. Jason Verrett, if healthy, I think could be one of the better corners in football. Desmond King, hell of a pick last year. I thought he'd be a late first, early second round guy. You go, where'd they get him in the 5th? Ridiculous. And then safeties, they had Derwin James that I grew. Maybe the safety was the weaker part of it, but they had Derwin James, one of the better safeties in the draft class, was my number 1 safety. So I gave it an A. It's very borderline. Could be an A+. And then, Coach, we talked about Gus Bradley. He's another borderline 1A, A+. He's famous for that Leo defense, that Melvin Ingram spot. He's a half linebacker, half defensive end, while Joey Bosa is just the defensive end. Very good at developing these players. So overall, pretty good grades for the Chargers. I think they'll be one of the top defenses this year. Let's hope. We're on to the top 4. This is very tight, these next few. Pretty confident by number 1, but these next few I think are very close. Number 4 is going to be the Rams. D-line, I gave them an A+. Obviously, that D-line is looking very, very good. Adding Ndamukong Suh with Aaron Donald, the best D-lineman in football, and Michael Brockers. Some pretty good backups too. Ethan Westbrooks and Dominique Easley. Pretty good depth. Drafted some guys too. Linebackers B-. This is, I think, where their weaker spot is. Really, Mark Barron stands out in that group, and I mean, he's not like an elite linebacker or anything. I thought they needed to draft some, which they did, but all those guys ready to go right away. They got Okoronkwo in there. They got Micah Kaiser, T. Gray Scales. So we'll see if those guys step up right away, but I think the linebacker group's kind of weaker. I think they're going to need some pass rush from the outside linebacker spot, so I think hopefully Okoronkwo can show up in his rookie season. DBs, I gave him an A. Very close to getting an A+. Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib. Hopefully Talib still plays at a high level. I think took a step down last year, so we'll see what happens with him. Depth really isn't there for corners, in my opinion, but the starters are very good. That's most important. Safeties, John Johnson, LaMarcus Joyner. Pretty solid safety duo there. Nickel Roby-Coleman is your nickelback. So pretty solid. Very close to an A+. And then coaching, I gave him an A+. Wade Phillips, excellent defensive mind. He had that defense balling with the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl. Just one of the best defense coordinators in football. So that's why he gets an A+. D-line with an A+, coaching with an A+, pretty solid there. Who's going to be next? It's going to be the Eagles. D-line, maybe the best D-line in football. They're battling the Rams there. So I gave him an A+. Obviously, that was a big part of winning the Super Bowl, of being the best team in football. So I gave him an A+. The linebacker unit, I gave a B+. Pretty solid. Nobody elite in there. Michael Kendricks, Jordan Hicks, Nigel Bradham. They had Josh Sweat. Interested to see where he will play. I think he's more of a D end, which is interesting because they're very stacked at D end. Um, I honestly think that's the best D line in football. Going back to the D line, I think it's the best in football. Derek Barnett, I'm very, very high on. And is he even the starter? They have Michael Bennett and Brandon Graham on the outside. I mean, they got depth. They got Pro Bowl starters in there. It's ridiculous. DBs, I gave him a B plus. Couldn't quite keep him in the A range. I'll explain that in a second. B plus, very good grade though. Jalen Mills, Ronald Darby, Rasul Douglas, the draft pick from last year. Sidney Jones, actually, before he got hurt, was my number one corner. Yes, ahead of Marshawn Lattimore. Very close, but ahead of Marshawn Lattimore before he got hurt in last year's draft. And I got hurt, dropped down a little bit, but they're going to get him back. I like Sidney Jones a lot, so that's crazy. He's in this group. They drafted Maddox from Pittsburgh as well. Safety's pretty solid, McLeod and Malcolm Jenkins. Jenkins getting up there in age. Let's see if he still plays at a high level. Was excellent last year. Could not keep it at an A range. A B plus still very good, but it seemed to me what stood out is like the secondary tackling may be a concern. I seen a lot of missed tackles, a lot of broken tackles in the secondary last year when teams got in the open field on offense. So that's what kept me down at a B plus. But very, very solid guys, young guys. Sidney Jones, I can't wait to watch him. I was very high on him. So that's something to get excited about in a second. And coaching A, Schwartz is obviously one of the better defensive minds in football. So I kept it an A there. Now we're on to our top two teams. Pretty obvious who those two teams are. And number 2 is going to be Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they were number 2 in defense last year, very close between the 1 and 2, same 1 and 2 teams that I have here. But D-line, I gave him an A+, was back and forth A+ range, but Calais Campbell was one of the better defensive players last year. Can he play at that high of a level? It's kind of, I don't know why. It's kind of hard to see him kind of getting up there in age. Surprised that he had his best year of his career last year. He's capable of doing it. Just hard to see that he does the same thing. And then Yannick Ngakoue, surprise guy from last year. Can he get better? That would be scary. He can because he's younger. Malik Jackson, maybe the main guy there in the interior D line. We got Marcel Darius as well. They got some depth there as well. They drafted Tavin Bryan as well. Forgot about that. Very interesting. Somehow the D line got better. They drafted a guy in the first round, too good to pass. Maybe he doesn't play right away, but he'll be part of the future. So I gave him an A+. Linebacker unit, I gave an A. You look at guys like the two guys, Telvin Smith and Miles Jack. That kind of looks like an A+. Obviously, got to fill that middle linebacker role, so I kept down an A. Telvin Smith was very, very impressive last year. And then DB's A. Some of you might be surprised by that. If it's just corners, it's an A+. But I gave it an A. Obviously, the corners are A.J. Bouye and Jalen Ramsey. Very good duo. Maybe the best in football. Eventually, we'll have rankings, the corner duos. That seems to be a hot topic the last few years. They had a DJ Hayden, not super high on him. But the safeties, very good safeties. Barry Church and Tayshaun Gibson. Now in their 30s, though. They do add Ronnie Harrison. Maybe he's more of a box guy. So maybe not the best safety duo, but they can play at a high level. Do they continue to play at a high level? At times, I saw that it was possible to beat those safeties deep over the top where the corners had no chance to help out. So it can be beat. So I couldn't quite give it an A+. And then coaching, I gave it an A-. Obviously, Todd Wash, maybe not the big name coach, but I think his strong suit is developing these players. You kind of get these younger guys that step up big time. The younger guys that come out of nowhere, Yannick Ngakoue, Telvin Smith, having his best year of his career by far, was solid before that, but kind of out of nowhere. Miles Jack developed really well. Jalen Ramsey, A.J. Bouye. Bottom line is I think he's a great developer, and that's why he stays in the A range there. But on to the number 1 defense. Everyone should know who it is after going through this list. It's the Vikings. D-line, I gave him an A+. You got Everson Griffin and Daniil Hunter on the outside. Daniil Hunter is very young, too. Freakish guy. I think he could take a crazy step up. And then the interior D-line, it somehow got better. You had Linval Joseph, who's one of the better D tackles in football there. And you had Sheldon Richardson, who's just an excellent defense tackle that knows how to get to the quarterback, a 3 technique, who Mike Zimmer wanted in that defense. Now they have. So Tom Johnson was pretty good last year, but they get to step up in Sheldon Richardson, no doubt about it. Pretty solid depth in there, too. Everson Griffin, known as maybe one of the better 4-3 ends in football, but I'll watch out for Daniil Hunter. I'm pretty high on him. I think he'll step up. So that D-line's somehow got better when it was already one of the better ones in football. Linebacker, this was very tough. I gave him an A. You look, it's very similar to the Jaguars. You look at Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, looks like A+. And then their other starting linebackers, Ben Gideon, who was only a rookie last year and actually played pretty solid. But for the whole unit, kind of went from A+ to A. But then you think about it, most of the game, Mike Zimmer kind of runs a two linebacker group. He plays more defensive backs, so it's mainly Kendricks and Barr. So it's kind of borderline there, but I stuck with the A because it's just two guys in there that they're kind of would be graded A+. And then DB unit, I gave him an A+. I mean, you got Xavier Rhodes, maybe the best corner in football. He's definitely up there. Trey Waynes, I actually thought played at a pretty high level last year. I thought was the best tackling corner in football. It kind of stood out to me. And then you drafted a first rounder in Mike Hughes, just like the Jaguars. Somehow their defense, the line got better. Somehow the Vikings secondary got better. You draft Mike Hughes, can play in the slot, can play outside, could do many things there. Mackenzie Alexander, who I was pretty high on a few years ago in the draft, pretty good slot guy. And then you look at the safeties, and Harrison Smith, maybe the best safety in football. He's up there. And then Andrew Sendejo, very good in that Saints game. He got knocked out of the game, and he was still probably the defensive MVP in that playoff game. And you could see the defense started sliding downhill a little bit, some fluky stuff, but once Sendejo was knocked out of the game, so he's a big part of that defense. I remember there was I think it was a Monday night game before the game. Gruden was talking about Sendejo should be a Pro Bowler and how he's one of the most underrated players in football. I knew Sendejo can play, but I thought that was a little funny. But as the season went on, it kind of stood out a little bit. Maybe not, he's not a Pro Bowler, but I see his point. And if you watch the Vikings, Harrison Smith, what he does in that defense, the play recognition is just ridiculous. So the DB's A+, the coach A+, Mike Zimmer might be the best defensive mind in football, and it showed last year, except for that last game. I'm not sure what happened that game, but they actually now have the best last year, the best third down defense in NFL history, which is pretty crazy. So the Vikings get the number 1 spot. I do like the Jags, Eagles, Rams. Those between the Vikings, Jags, Eagles, Rams, those are the top tier teams. Those are the top tier defense. I think they really separate themselves. So let me know what you guys think. Give me your top 10. Other teams that just missed the list, the Texans maybe on paper, they're a top 10 defense if everybody's healthy. Big if. Obviously, J.J. Watt, maybe the best defensive player in football if he's healthy. DB's pretty solid. Could use some work though. The thing, what I couldn't keep them, or why I couldn't put them in the top 10, last year they gave up most points per game. Obviously, it was because of injuries, but still, a little scary. So I couldn't put them in here. Other teams, the Giants on paper look very good. Maybe they can get back to where they were 2 years ago, but last year a little shaky. So I kept them out, but close. The Ravens, pretty balanced defense, good players. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Smith, like him a lot at corner if he's healthy. C.J. Mosley, big C.J. Mosley guy. Other than that, maybe aging a little bit, maybe just too balanced, very similar to the Bears, back and forth, the Bears or Ravens, maybe who's at 10. So that's a team. Anybody else? I think that's pretty much it there. I think the Jets got a good young defense, should be up there in the near future. I think they got to get that offense together though. But yeah, that'll do it for my top 10 defenses. We'll keep going through different top 10s, eventually get the position rankings. Then my top 10, maybe offensive players, defense players, my top 10 players in football. Pretty exciting stuff, pretty fun stuff. Love doing these types of videos. And it's all thanks to you guys. That's the only reason I can keep doing it. We grew so much this past year, and we want to continue to do it so we can continue to do this and grow, make our content even better for you guys. So please subscribe if you haven't already. That'll do it for this one. Goodbye.